Well, let's jump over and talk about the Cardinals game. What's your take on that?
Generally disappointed because it was a winnable game, and we just hadn't won a lot of games in the last couple of years. But at the same time, like if I'm making room in my in my head for some more moral victories, there are some here to be had. There's still a lot of questions. Who are the Buffalo Bills is a big one. I had questions about them coming into the game. Are they going to suffer defensively because of all the change that they had in their secondary and so on? Like they had a lot of changes. Were they on offense without Stephon Diggs and such? And so I'll really need like a quarter of a season, probably, 4 games before I really evaluate any team to think, okay, they're really good here and not so great there and so on, rather than seeing one game as a real sample size, as trying to identify it as a blip, or is this legitimately what things are going to be. There are a couple of other disappointments. Some of them were like, well, Kyler Murray didn't really produce that much, statistically, 162 passing yards, more 60 almost on the ground, only 1 touchdown, got sacked 4 times, things like that. And you're just like, it's a bit lackluster for a team that, we're going into this year thinking, their offense is going to be their strength. But at the same time, I was watching the Rams and the Lions play Sunday night, and they brought up multiple times whenever the Lions in particular would have a play happen, and it was just off schedule. It's just someone missed, or there was a miscommunication or something like that. And they mentioned several times. It's like, well, they didn't play in the preseason. They didn't play any of their starters in the preseason. And if the Lions, who've had basically the same offense for the last 3 years, can be affected by not playing in the preseason, then the Cardinals, who have a lot of new players and pieces and people shifting from right tackle to left tackle and so on, they can absolutely be affected by it. So I can rationalize a bit of the sluggishness on offense to just that, to just like it's a blip, it's 1 week of rust, kind of, sort of, that kind of thing. There are things within that are puzzling. I know I already mentioned to you once in passing, is like, how does Marvin Harrison only have 3 targets for 1 catch for 4 yards? It's odd. I know that's making the rounds today. And it's a question. That seems like a real, like they really overlooked that. Something happened there and went wrong. I don't expect that to persist through the season, but, warning lights go off. The more disappointing thing is, so far, it seems like our defense is predictably bad. Like we said straight up, hey, doesn't seem like we have a great pass rush and a real absence here. It's looking like we hit the nail right on the head. So that's frustrating, but it just is what it is at this point. You're not going to go out and sign Aaron Donald and Fletcher Cox right now.
Yeah.
Unless they're listening, in which case
nice.
You are needed. But that was kind of the at a glance. There were definitely bright spots. And again, for the encouragement portion of this, we were in a 1-score game against a team that almost always wins their division. I mean, the Bills tend to be 11-6, 12-5, 13-4. And if we're in winnable games against teams like that, then I should be able to glean some encouragement from that. and I do. But it was just the disappointment of it coming right down to it and then coming up short. We did not get a Hail Murray sequel. So, yeah, you watched a lot of it as well. Did you see something different or something else?
I mean, kind of some side notes to the things you've already brought up. I, as a Cowboy fan, we had a real rough experience with James Cook last year. And so I was really intrigued to see how your defense handled him going into this game, because he was a huge factor in our game last year. And he had almost 20 rushes, 70 yards. To me, that's a victory. I mean, that's a 130 yards to the Bills, I think, is a small victory, right? But a victory against a team that's dangerous on the ground and in the air. But you gave up 39 yards to Josh Allen. I think a lot of people be frustrated about that, but Kyler had considerably more yards on fewer rushes. I felt like you do. Yes, there are moments where they give up the yardage at the time. You don't want them to. They didn't give up the big play much. Does that make sense? Like there weren't a lot of 40-yard passes, 30-yard things. There were a couple, but not a lot of on the ground in particular. So I felt like that was a kind of a positive to take out of there. Now they needed, of course, to be in the air because they needed to make up ground as they went into the second half. The Bills did. So I saw that as a positive. I also felt like, again, the rushing game of the Cardinals in the first half in particular looked really strong. That the combination of Connor, even Benson at moments, but then as soon as you go after him and you stack the box against him, all of a sudden Kyler's running down the sideline on the other side, and you don't even know where he went. I feel like it's like that piece feels like it's close. It's just the passing game again, and you pointed it out, is that frustration with the Marvin Harrison Jr. situation. If that can get figured out, like, hey, what didn't go to plan, what didn't, whatever. If that can get worked out, it's like maybe you get that balance that you've been looking for. That's kind of what I saw anyway. Kind of
Yeah.
walking in and out of that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, in summation, I guess it was disappointing, but I can see like a really rational, not lying to myself level of rational reason for optimism that we could get better, that we could, as I've said before, kind of iron out the rough edges, the wrinkles, and some of the flaws. We expected us to run the ball, although really, again, statistically, we ran the ball pretty effectively. 5 yards a clip, that's great, but I think we could do even better there. So we'll see. But then we just got to get the pass game working. But next week we're home. Our home opener against the Rams. From what I saw last night, them playing against Detroit. The Rams have a few question marks. We'll see what's going on with Puka Nacua, as he went down with that knee injury. I haven't heard anything about how serious that is. If he's going to miss any time, if he's going to miss a lot, he may be just fine now. Who knows? But we'll see what's going on with them. It would be really exciting to come away with a win there because we do not beat the Rams very often. But we'll see. We'll get more into that game here in a couple of days. But overall, I am optimistic enough, but I'm still a little let down by what could have been, I guess. So, yeah.
It felt like it was within reach, right? So
it was right there, last drive and everything. So, we'll see. We'll still kick him.
Yep. We'll see you next week as they go in.